Welcome to another interview with our players from Tales from the Temple of Elemental Evil. I am your Dungeon Master, Brian B. Rye Harrison. And we have a very special guest today. Please introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? My name is Jack Rucker. I've been playing D&D for 7 years, DMing for 6, and in Temple of Elemental Evil, I am lucky enough to be playing Lysander Elvistra, the Battlemaster Valley Elf fighter from all over the place in Greyhawk.
Whenever you say Valley Elf, it really makes me think of like a California Valley Elf.
It really does make it sound like that I'm from Burbank, and
Yes.
that I exclusively drinking pumpkin spice lattes, and I'm not a high elf, I'm actually Valley. Mm-hmm. It feels so pretentious as someone who knows very little about Greyhawk.
Yeah.
When I saw that name, I was like, okay, if nothing else, this is going to make me stand out, considering that he's meant to kind of be the black thumb amidst a group of normal elves. Mm-hmm. I was like, I kind of got to do this, if nothing else, just it really fits his fish out of water when it comes to just being around normal people trope, which ended up just working really well.
Yeah, so that's a great start. Let's go into Lysander, because the way you play Lysander is not that at all. You aren't some flighty person. You're very serious. So why don't you tell us how you came to envision this character?
Yeah, so honestly, Lysander comes from a lot of different inspirations. Obviously, I've been lucky enough to be a DM for a long time, and I've gotten to experiment with a lot of different kinds of builds and character archetypes, and I'm a big anime head, so it's kind of the stoic samurai type that is definitely more standoffish, but also one who has that deep sense of justice and honor to him, but is much more comfortable in a fight than he is talking to anybody else, despite being this refined and polite person who can talk to people, which I tried to envision a lot, especially now that he's been thrust into a leadership role, right. Both as he kind of feels responsible for the party as the most experienced fighter and the oldest one among them, as well as he has a apprentice in Slen, a forced younger sibling that he's kind of forced to now essentially act like what he was taught to be, which is a protector, somebody who is there to protect everybody else. But you can tell in a lot of the way that I've tried to make him and play him is that he's very unsure of how to actually do that, and it usually ends up being, you guys stay here, I'll go in and throw myself into danger, and if I die, that's fine, because you guys I care more about than my own life. So it's a lot of different vibes that I tried to go for. It's kind of a combination of that stoic samurai from, like The Last Samurai kind of movie, and then also that epic, over-the-top, ridiculous maneuvers of an anime swordsman. It's a lot of fun, as I've never gotten to really play a samurai like this before, and especially one that is that quieter and let my actions do the talking kind of character.
We'll get into some of that shortly, but I think as a Knight Protector, you really took on a leadership role for the party. I've asked this to some of the other people I've interviewed. What brought Lysander to start adventuring either again, if they're having partially retired, which is kind of what it felt like, or brought them into this particular motivation?
Yeah, so as far as his motivation to actually adventure, it's a combination of a few different things. And I don't want to give away too much of the fun details of the backstory, but essentially he lost someone very important to him, and where his inner personality, his inner voice says, I've lost my reason to keep fighting. I failed to protect this person I cared about. So why should I? And he's kind of just been living as your typical mercenary, just traveling from town to town, not making any meaningful connections and doing these jobs. It was when he was approached by this young, plucky girl, Selenen, who was looking for a Knight Protector, had heard stories of a traveling Knight Protector and wanted to study under one, that he kind of forced himself to get back on the saddle and both be a little bit more of a leader and a reluctant just, all right, if we're doing this the right way. If I'm going to train you, I'm going to train you to be better than I was. I'm going to train you to not fail, to protect people that matter like I did. So it's a little hodgepodge of a few different things, between kind of wanting to also redeem himself and be the person that the one that he lost wanted him to be, while also being, I have a second chance. I was given a second chance that I don't feel I deserve. I have even though I don't outwardly express it, I have somebody that I now care about just as much, and I would literally rather throw my own life in the line if it means that she gets to survive and live the honorable life of a knight that I feel I'm not worthy of.
Right. We didn't really see it on camera, but it did feel like it was almost that cinema trope of, the retired or semi-retired authority figure, or adventurer or hero who's like, get out of here, kid. You don't want that kind of life. That kind of thing. Like,
Definitely.
pushing it away.
Definitely.
And then eventually succumbing, finding out that their heart is a little bit softer than their exterior would want to be.
Little bit of Geralt in there. I tried to envision a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of Geralt. So, let's talk about the game, as it were. You became an adventurer. You found out that there was this terrible evil lurking in the world, and then you set out. And it turned out it was a lot closer to home than maybe your initial adventure had taken. There was some little wanderings out into the world, trying to investigate all things that happened before the story started. But then when you said that you were from Verbobonk, like, you realized that the Cairn Hills are just south of that, and the temple is a little bit closer to home than you'd like.
It is in my effective backyard, and while Lysander has not been home since the death of his younger sister, he does still feel as though he owes everything to this adopted family that he has. So this adventure really, I think, struck a very, very strong chord with Lysander, and it's one of the big reasons why early on in one of the first episodes, when Selene and the rest of the party in particular, and that first kind of fireside chat we all have of, y'all, what are we doing? We almost all died. We should leave before this gets any worse. Lysander even feels that much more indignant about we need to finish this, because part of him deep down doesn't want to know what happens if we leave and what we're putting at risk and how many people that are close to him that maybe he doesn't see personally anymore, but he still feels as though if I lose them, then I've really lost everything.
There's two different tracks that I want to follow up on here. One is what you're bringing about, the time. Temple of Elemental Evil is a mega dungeon. It was much more than we could cover in a single session or even a handful of sessions.
Right.
Especially in the format that we wanted to do it. So we had to do it in a series of vignettes. And one thing that was clear, and I think you guys role play through excellent, is the back and forth from the innocent, plucky group to the down in the muck, supplies ruined, burned, like freezing, last rations. What was that like for you as a player to be able to just cut back and forth? Because we're not doing that like in real time.
Yeah,
We're not playing through the adventure start to finish.
Yeah, it is. It's something I've never gotten to do before, and it was really interesting to kind of rotate back and forth to, just like you said, to go from peaceful blue skies of we are exploring this town and talking to merchants to all of a sudden, all right, we're in a place where two of us almost just died, or we are now fighting a living sentient ball of something, and how are we dealing with that? And it was one that, while it was difficult at first to kind of get in that mindset of, all right, we are completely pivoting from left foot to right foot here as far as what kind of vibe we're going for, I think for a character like Lysander, who tries to be very even-keeled through most of the time, he's a very good character to make that transition easier for me, just because seeing his emotions flare up is not something that he does often. So I think this character in particular was very, not easy to do, but it was one that I feel like lent itself very well to it. But it's a very, really fun way to do this campaign. And one, like you talked about, it's a lot of separate vignettes of different points in time, different combat encounters, different RP encounters that we turn on a dime.
Yeah.
And I think that lends itself to a lot of really fun, both RP opportunities as well as ways to let your character be their character in every situation, because you know what the good old days were like because you just were there 10 minutes ago.
Yes.
So you know what you're fighting for, which I think is, especially for Lysander, he's the one who does not let his past demons die. He holds them like a cross on his chest. That I think made it really fun and that much more intricate to get into those RP moments.
On the subject of RP, I've asked the other interviewees, is there a particular member of your party that you had a connection to? And it sounds like it's Salomon. Do you want to go into that more in terms of your interaction with Alex and how this came to be? Yeah,
so I was lucky enough to meet Alex one of the very first times that I ever DM'd. She was one of the new people that came to a brewery that we used to go to with TPK. And we were immediately just talking to each other about random nonsense. And every now and then we just keep seeing each other. I'd be DMing, she would be playing, she'd walk by and say, oh, hey, how are you? And we just ended up talking a little bit more. And when we both started to make these characters, it became pretty clear that there was a good amount of overlap in the vibe that we were going for, as well as one that was kind of that, almost Kratos and Atreus from God of War kind of thing, where you have the kid who wants to prove themselves, wants to see what the world has in store, and the older Kratos, who maybe Lysander's not that dark, but is definitely one who is, I've been through some real crap out there. I know what it looks like. You don't want that, but if you do, I will not leave your side because I do not want you to see, or rather, I don't want you to be alone to see the weird stuff out there. And I think as far as how that worked between Alex and I, a lot of it was just kind of off the cuff. A lot of it was, she's a phenomenal RPer with her character. She gets so in character, which makes it really easy for me to play off of because I can just kind of bounce off of it, especially as she's definitely, and Selenin is definitely the more social character of us two, obviously. Yes. It makes it very easy to be the master to the student, the Yoda, think more, you need to kind of energy, which I think lend itself very well, as well as that Alex and I are both very outgoing and social people. We talk about all kinds of random stuff. So I think it just became that much easier to literally just, put on different colored lenses and just be in these different personality types, and our interplay between each other, I feel like, is just very natural. It doesn't feel like I have to stretch to get the right kind of attitude out of a conversation that we have in character, which I think was really lucky, and I'm very fortunate to get to play with somebody as talented as she is.
I think we're all very fortunate, and I think I, as a dungeon master, have been incredibly fortunate to have such a awesome group of players to assemble for this.
Everybody's incredible.
Yeah, it's been a good experience. In the game itself, was there a particular moment that either you or Lysander felt or really appreciated, something that stood out to you that was your favorite moment, or it was very exciting, or maybe it was what stood out to you?
Honestly, there's several that I still think about, and obviously it wasn't that long ago, but it definitely still feels very fresh in my mind, some of these intense scenes that we did. And the one in particular that really sticks with me is, ironically enough, just the first scene that we did, because I'm one of the people where, as a DM, I really want my first impressions of NPCs or character interactions to be meaningful and that tell you a lot about the character without you needing to do a lot of heavy lifting of looking at the camera and saying, I'm from here, I do this. You can tell I'm the fighter because I've got weapons on my back. Like, it's much more fun, I feel like, to get those just meaningful character interactions in just how you see everybody play off each other. So I think just that first scene when we all get into, this little crowded corridor, make this little tiny ember of a flame, and Juan with Swamake goes over and is immediately tending to his wounds. Lysander's immediately trying to make a raft to give it to him and try and be an impromptu battlefield medic, while you then have Driss not taking things super seriously, picks up a literal bone and tosses it to Lysander like a ball, and he goes to catch it, and Selenin just blasts it out of the air, shards all over his face. He's too trying to be stoic and composed to even say anything, but immediately looks over at her like, come on. It's just those little interactions, I feel, just did a really good job of not only setting the table, but obviously all four of us are experienced D&D players. You're an incredible and experienced DM, and I feel like that first scene just did a lot to kind of establish, okay, I get what roles these people all play in a group, and I can see why they all kind of work together, even if it is that, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of forced family. You can kind of see how it worked, which I think just that first scene alone, I immediately felt way more comfortable in working with all three of the other players.
But I've heard it said that Guardians of the Galaxy is just D&D.
In space, yeah.
In space, yeah.
It's just Spelljammer done right.
Spelljammer done right. In the temple, are there any questions that you had for me, or even throughout the world, that you didn't have answered, or that you felt that you wanted to get more of?
There's a lot. Not in the sense that you haven't covered everything, but I just mean in the sense of Lysander is definitely a character, as well as me as a player, who I'm not doubtful of everything, but I want to have all the variables before I try and figure out what exactly is going on. So obviously know that the temple is a mega dungeon, but I'm so innately curious about how it works, as far as, okay, who built this? Like, what was its initial purpose? Was it just a temple of elemental evil that was always, bad guys were here and they were worshipping X evil thing, which is awesome if it is, but I think both in Lysander's and my own and Jack's mind as just the player is just very interested in, okay, how did we get from a temple with grand purpose from eons or centuries ago to now a place where every room has a different race of creatures inhabiting it, or different encounters that have taken root and they've come apart in shambles and ruins and enough to fill with water all the way to the top.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm very excited and curious to know, kind of the history of the temple itself, and if it was built like this, why? What were they trying to keep out or keep in?
Maybe I could do a lore drop, but that is a. Do you want the answer, or you just want like skim surface?
I'll take the short one for now, so that would spoil too much.
Now, the skim surface answer is that there are these opposing powers. This is what I described as the princes of elemental evil.
Right.
And they're each occupying a corner, as it were, of the dungeon. And they need to have a common goal. Otherwise, especially the diametrically opposed ones, just absolutely would not be there. So there is, or was, a unifying force that kept them all there. Now, when you guys got to the temple this time, you saw that there's only like 50% cult.
Right.
But those were the diametrically opposed ones. So we don't know what happened to air. We don't know what happened to earth. But fire and water are sitting in there, like occupying their own little portions of it.
And we don't really know if they're at odds or are aligned in something, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, that's so cool. And that makes me even more curious about then, okay, well, are water and fire then fighting over what was the territory of earth and air? Or is it just they're waiting for their allies to get back? Or is it now these two are the water and fire have become allies against earth and air?
There's a lot
cool
to unpack, especially since we set it in like a future time.
There are 4 main nations based on the classical elements.
Thanks.
Kingdom is a large nation that takes inspiration from historical Chinese dynasties.
Thank you, Google.
Okay, Google, stop. Well, we got a little bit of an answer there on the 5 Chinese elements, as well as the historical 4 elements.
There was peace before the Fire Nation attacked.
So I asked you to ask me a question. Is there anything else that you wanted to get out of the session? Is there a scene that you wanted to have experienced in those vignettes?
I think the one that I really want to do, just because I think it is the single most impactful moment of Lysander's life, is the first time that he did meet Selenin. Just because I think that alone is literally, it is the moment in, not to say that he's the hero or anything, but it is the moment in his hero's journey that is the call to action. He was very much in dire straits in his life and was very much feeling like, I'm living a dead-end life, doing quests and trying to uphold my name, but also I have nothing to really live for. But that really is what gave him the spark to not only be here in the temple, but also to actually pick up a sword again and do it meaningfully, not just to make a little bit of gold. So that's one scene that I really want to do. And I'd also really like to just get a moment to experience what just a night in the tavern outside of a job with all of our party members would be like. Just, I imagine Swan Lake cooking something, Driss standing over in the corner and looking angrily at a fireplace, just wanting to be cold again, while Lysander sharpening swords and trying to get Selenin to pay attention on the proper way to do it and things like that.
Just sort of an idyllic moment. There's no evil in the world you have to deal with at the moment.
Just what a little bit of downtime looks like. I'm a big fan of, again, those moments that just little actions or just a little scene that just you get so much character motivation and just like you can tell what these guys are all about. Those are always my favorite moments in D&D, whether that happens in combat or out of combat. But I just think that would be a really fun one to get to explore and see what we look like. Not haggard and tired and not on the hunt for this weird evil going on. I think it'd be just a really fun thing to get to see someday.
Okay. Well, I think there's an opportunity for the first one to flash back in a very dire moment that we're not going to spoil. But that would be a perfect cinematic moment to be like, let's cut away from this. Go back in time. So remind me, and maybe we can play that through.
I got you. I'd love to.
All right. I want to do some rapid fire questions. But first, you mentioned that you're a dungeon master. How long have you been doing that?
I've been DMing for around about 6 years now. So I joined back up in freshman year of college, where one of my friends, Megan, was nice enough she was obsessed with Critical Role, right, when it was happening, Vox Machina was happening, and she convinced a group of 6 of us, who I still play with to this day, I'm lucky enough to get to play with all of them, to try D&D, and I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but sure. And after we finished that first campaign, I was like, I kind of want to try this DMing thing, and lo and behold, I've now been the forever DM of our group for about 6 years.
Hey, high five for forever DMs.
Forever DMs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, a little more rapid fire. Do you have a favorite class.
I do. It is kind of 1A, 1B. It kind of rotates based on the day, but it's Monk or Warlock. Monk because I'm an old school anime head. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z. I can describe unarmed attacks. That's my favorite thing to do as far as combat stuff. And then Warlock because to me that's just... It lets both the DM and the player shine because you get that really fun, customizable build in a Warlock of how you want, what invocation you take, what cantrips you take, and how your flavor you're blasting, as well as my favorite thing is getting to what your bond with your patron looks like. That to me is really, really cool, both for combat and out of combat. So those two kind of, they dance back and forth between which one I'm liking more of the time.
All right. I know it's interrupting the rapid fire of what I was trying to go for, but...
Sorry.
No, not you. The scene that stands out in my mind with Lysander was the gargoyle fight in the courtyard.
That was really
having the epic moment. That is now it makes sense that you've explained the samurai movies and everything out. You could imagine the camera panning around the courtyard, these gargoyles harassing everyone, and then just Lysander leaping out, the sword igniting in flame, and you called it. You're like, I want to cut its arm off, and then bam, right through the arm.
It was really cool.
Clutch.
I love those moments. They're very, very fun. Anytime you get to have those epic moments that feel like they're not scripted, it's just based on how the dice roll. But whenever you get those where it feels like it is a movie scene, it's just it's the most satisfying thing ever to get to do, both as a player, as the DM, just like feeling proud of the player, just like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
Okay, back into rapid fire. Favorite polyhedral size.
Okay. I feel like the D6 is the classic, but I'm actually partial to the D8 just because that one, I don't know what it is about it, but there's something really satisfying about rolling a ton of D8s for like unarmed attacks and just getting a bunch of 8s when you're playing like high level monk. I don't know why. It's something really satisfying about it, and just a little diamond shape I like.
Very cool. As a dungeon master, do you have a favorite module?
I do. So this is actually one that people will should be annoyed at me because it is considered one of the worst ones, but I am a huge fan of Tyranny of Dragons because it's the first one that I ever tried to run. And it was a little bit of a mess, but I've since run my own version of it, completely homebrewed. I'm actually finishing it with a different group of TPK right now.
Very cool.
And so that one has a special place in my heart because, I mean, Dragons are the classic. As soon as I saw there was a book that was entirely, you guys are a faction uniting the world like the end of The Hobbit, fighting against a dragon army, I was like, all right, I don't care what the internet says. That sounds awesome, and I want to do it. So it's that one is definitely number one, and then a close second is Curse of Strahd, just because I'm such a horror nut. So getting to be in Barovia and do that bit of dark, desolate energy. My beloved.
We'll have to have another talk about Ravenloft specifically.
Anytime.
All right, last one. Yeah, last one. If you have only one snack at your D&D table, what would it be?
Okay. So the first one that I would say are actually just one.
Just one snack. That's all you get.
Okay, so I'm gonna say one that I've used before myself as a DM, and it's peanut M&Ms. Because not only do they not really make a mess, because like my go-to snacks in general is like Doritos, but you're gonna get your hands all cruddy and stuff. But with peanut M&Ms, what I used to do when I would run one-shots for people is use the peanut M&Ms as enemy tokens. They would be the enemies, so then whenever anybody got a kill, you get to eat the enemy, and everybody's now motivated to get in the fight. So that's one of my all-time favorites that I don't get to pull it out a ton anymore, but if I ever get to, I'm always like getting that family size bag. Like, all right, here's a horde of goblins out on the table.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on our interview.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for playing with us.
I'm very lucky, and thank you for being a not only incredible DM, but to everybody. Brian set up almost everything that is TPK TV and a lot of not only these interviews, but the game itself. So we are very lucky to play with you.
Thank you all. Special shout out to Lost City Brewery, one of our early locations after we left J. Wakefield, to have a home here in North Carolina. Thanks, y'all. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy, everybody.